Welcome back to Ultimate Reddit Drama. We're incredibly grateful for your support before we begin. Today's tale, tell us which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Alex's world fell apart on a typical Tuesday. The morning was off to normal. The strong smell of coffee in the kitchen, the news channel playing in the background, and Jason's homework copy, which was half finished as usual. Alex sat in the living room and opened the bank statement on his laptop, and the next moment he stopped breathing. Your balance has fallen below the minimum threshold. His forehead furrowed. How could that be? There was enough money in the college fund. Both he and Laura agreed to keep this fund untouched. This was his biggest priority for Jason's future. But the account was almost empty. His heart began to beat loudly. He immediately called Laura, but the call went straight to voicemail. Laura? He dialed again nervously. No answer. Then an unconscious fear knocked in his mind. Laura had been behaving strangely for the past few weeks, staying away all the time, unnecessarily overdressing, and making vague excuses when asking questions. No, it can't be. But when he looked at the transaction history of the bank, the truth came out. Thousands of dollars were spent in luxury hotels and expensive restaurants. Laura was on the other end of the country, with someone else. He looked at Jason suddenly nervously. The innocent 10-year-old, lost in his tablet, was oblivious that his world had just changed. Where's Mom? Jason raised his head, eating an apple. His eyes were calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. I don't know, Dad. Alex seized the rising anger in his throat. All right, son. But deep inside, his world was burnt down. Alex couldn't sleep that night. He called Laura repeatedly, but there was no answer. In the middle of the night, he sat in his home office surveilling traffic camera footage. Through her contacts, he learned that Laura was last seen in a luxury hotel with a man named Damian Cross. Damian Cross. The name was familiar. Alex saw her at a business meeting a few years ago. He was a real estate developer who had a very good image in society. But Alex found something suspicious about him. She quickly opened another tab on her screen and analyzed the bank statement in depth. And then he saw something that darkened his eyes. Money transferred to Damian's account. Laura hadn't just betrayed him. She had also sold her son's future. The next morning, as Alex was embroiled in his troubles, he realized that Jason was behaving differently. The 10-year-old had always been smart, but now he seemed more serious than necessary. He was constantly typing something on his tablet, and whenever Alex approached him, he would quickly turn off the screen. What are you doing? Just homework, Dad. But Alex became suspicious. Then, a few days later, he noticed another strange thing. Jason was spending hours in the garage. He lived there alone, playing with tools and making some charts and notes on the wall. One night, when Alex opened the garage door, what he saw was nothing short of a detective movie. Sketches of bank transactions, flowcharts, and spying devices were made on the whiteboard. Lines of code on the laptop screen were scrolling fast. Jason? The child raised his head. There was no nervousness in his eyes. Have you... I'm doing everything right, Dad. There was a cold confidence in his voice. I'm doing right with what Mom did to us. Alex couldn't sleep that night. He wondered, was his son just an innocent child, or something else? Was he planning something against his mother? And if so, how far was it going to go? But before he could find the answers to these questions, things got darker. Suddenly, at 2 a.m., his phone rang. Caller ID. Laura. His heart began to beat loudly. He stared for a few moments, then finally answered. What? His voice was cold. A panicked voice came from the other side. Alex, help me. Laura's voice trembled from the other side of the phone, her nervousness evident. Alex clenched his jaw, his fingers gripping the phone tightly. How dare the woman ask for help after all she did? His breathing quickened, but he kept himself calm. Her voice was as cold as ice. "Why do you need my help, Laura?" There was a sound of heavy breathing from the other side, then a broken whisper. "Alex, I don't know what's going on. I'm in Miami, I don't have any money, my ID is gone, all my bank accounts are frozen. I think Damien has betrayed me." Alex's eyes darkened. It was a revenge script, but he was not the main character in it. He heaved a deep sigh but didn't answer. Laura's voice became even more desperate. "Please, Alex, I don't know who did this. I don't understand anything." Alex's eyes fell on Jason, who was doing something on his tablet. There was no expression on his face, but his fingers were moving rapidly across the screen. For a second, something felt strange, a slight doubt, but immediately it shook it off. "Do you need me now?" Alex said. His voice was so harsh that Laura's slight sobbing was heard. "I made a mistake." Laura's voice was fading. "But I never thought that would happen. I don't see a way out. Damien has disappeared, and now." "What now, Laura?" "The police are after me now." There was a sudden silence in the room. Alex held his breath, and Jason, who was sitting some distance away, also stopped for a moment. Laura's panicked voice came again. "They interrogated me, Alex. They say there are discrepancies in my bank records, money transferred in my name. They think I was involved in fraud with Damien." Alex's mind began to work faster. This was the same money that was withdrawn from Jason's college fund. But there was something else. If the police were watching Laura, it meant someone was pushing them in the right direction. Her attention turned again to Jason, who gave a slight smile and locked the screen of his tablet. "Have you done anything, Jason?" The child looked at him, his eyes calm, steady, and deep. He shrugged his shoulders as if it were a trivial matter. "I just got things in the right place, Dad." Alex's heart began to beat loudly. Laura was still on the phone, but now her voice sounded distant. "What do you mean, the right place?" Jason now smiled and said, "I fixed the things that went wrong. Mom should take her share of responsibility, right?" For the first time, Alex felt that he did not fully understand his own son. "Jason, what did you do?" The child blinked, as if he didn't really understand the effect of his words. Then he bowed his head and said in a cold voice, "We just did what we had to do." A strange fear began to grow inside Alex. Laura's voice came back from the phone, now even more nervous. "Alex, please. I don't know what's happening to me. The police are saying that there are fake accounts in my name, transactions which I have never done. I feel like someone is playing with my life." Jason looked at the phone silently and whispered very softly, "They played with you, Mom. Now I'm just doing the turn right." There was an awkward silence in the room. "Alex, why aren't you saying something?" Alex barely flicked his tongue. "Laura, I think it's too late now." Laura's panicked breathing was heard. She was about to say something else when there was a noise from the other side, the sound of police sirens, the sound of rapid footsteps. "Oh my God," Laura's panicked voice echoed. "They're coming. Alex, please say something." Then came a faint knocking sound. The phone was disconnected. Alex slowly put the phone down. His mind was still trying to understand what had happened. Jason got up from his place, holding his tablet tightly. There was no expression on his face, but there was a comfort in his eyes. "It's over now, Dad," she said. Alex looked at his son, but he realized he was looking at someone else. Someone he hadn't recognized until now. "Jason, what did you do?" The child smiled and replied, "Which was necessary." There was the same silence in the room again. The night was dark, but Alex couldn't sleep. He sat in the living room, repeatedly looking at the phone screen. Laura's last call was still visible in the call log, and there was a notification just below it. Miami police arrested the woman for suspected fraud. Alex turned off the screen. His hands were cold. She looked up at Jason, who was sitting on the couch with his tablet on it, his fingers moving slowly across the screen. His eyes were shining as if he had just solved a riddle. "What do you intend to do now?" Alex asked in a low but stern voice. Jason raised his head and looked directly into his father's eyes. "Now?" he said with a slight smile. "Now we just have to wait." Alex took a deep breath. "Jason, I want to know what you did. Everything." The child looked at him silently for a moment. Then he turned the screen of his tablet to Alex. Bank statements, logs, and email tracks were open on the screen. "I didn't just get my mom's money back, Dad." Alex's heart began to beat faster again. "So what else did you do?" Damien also got over. Hearing this, Alex's spine ran cold. "Finished? What do you mean?" Jason's eyes grew cold. "Mom stole our money and moved in with Damien. But Damien wasn't just a thug, Papa. He was a criminal. He had robbed many women in this way." So? So I finished her story too." Alex seized the fear rising in his throat. "What do you mean, Jason?" The child turned his tablet around again. This time, the Miami Police Department's website was open on the screen. Damien Cross, wanted for financial fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. "You tipped off the police?" "Yes," Jason said casually, "but didn't just tip over. I also provided evidence. Bank transactions, emails, list of fake companies, everything." Alex was speechless. "How did you do all this?" "I tracked down their digital shadows." "Digital shadow?" Damien thought he was smart, but the transactions he made weren't hidden. "I traced the list of all their fake companies, linked their bank accounts, and gave the police all the information that they would never have been able to find." Breathing became even heavier for Alex. "And you gave marks to the police against the mother too?" Jason nodded. "I didn't do anything, Dad. I just sent the right things to the right people in the right place." "And now?" "Now it remains to be seen whether Damien escapes or is arrested." Then the phone rang. Caller ID, private number. Alex picked up the phone. A low but cold voice came from the other side. "What did you do, Alex?" It was Damien. "I didn't do anything, Damien." "Don't talk nonsense," growled Damien. "The police are after me. All my accounts have been frozen. An arrest warrant has been issued in my name. It's your job, isn't it?" "I didn't do anything," Alex said in a deliberately low voice. "Maybe someone else turned out to be smarter than you." On the other side, there was silence for a few moments. Then Damien took a deep breath. "Your son." Alex's blood ran cold. "Your son is behind all this, isn't he?" Jason sat motionless. His eyes had relaxed as if he had foreseen everything. "You two are going to pay a heavy price for it," growled Damien. "You think it's over? I'll be back." Alex hung up the phone. She noticed that Jason was still calm. "What are you going to do now, Dad?" Alex looked out the window. "We have to be prepared." Jason's smile deepened even more. "I'm already ready." Alex's breathing was heavy in the silence of the night. Nothing could be heard in the room except the ticking of the clock, but there was a storm inside it. Damien's phone call was still ringing in his ears. "I'll be back." She looked up at Jason, who was still busy with his tablet, his eyes glaring as if he was planning the next move. "Jason, we're not safe anymore," Alex said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know, Dad," replied Jason without raising his eyes. "Damien will try to escape, but he won't go far." Alex looked at his son in astonishment. "How do you know so much?" Jason gave a faint smile and turned the screen of his tablet to Alex. "Because I've already blocked his way." Alex looked up at the screen. There were several maps open, as well as some tracking data. "What is it?" "Damien is still in Miami," Jason explained, "tracking down his phone location and all of his fake accounts." "So you're keeping an eye on his every move?" Yes, and I'm not just watching, I'm controlling. Alex began to be afraid of his own son's words. Matlab? Meaning that when he tries to stay in any hotel, his credit card will decline. When he tries to withdraw money from any bank, the account will be locked. When he tries to rent the car, the transaction will fail. Alex didn't even move. Jason, you broke into his system? It wasn't difficult, Jason shrugged. Damien is no genius. He has fallen into his own trap, and now he will be forced to make mistakes. And what if he tries to attack? So we'd already know. Then there was some movement outside his house. Alex was immediately alarmed. He looked out of the window, but saw nothing. Who could it be? He asked in a low voice. Jason began typing something on his tablet without panicking. Checking, he said, then raised his head a few moments later. It was just the neighbor's car. Alex breathed a sigh of relief, but his heartbeat was still rapid. We've got to get out of here, Jason. Damien can do something at any time. No, Jason said firmly. We don't have to go anywhere. He himself will come to us. What if he resorts to violence? So all his security is already over. No money, no help, and no way out. He is alone and helpless. Alex looked into his son's eyes. There was no fear, no mercy. You had everything planned in advance, didn't you? I just turned the situation in my favor, Jason said, now just waiting for the game to finish. The relaxed tone that was intimidating to Alex. It's not a game, Jason. I know, said the child, and for the first time there was a slight sternness in his voice. But if I don't play it right, we will lose. Alex understood how far Jason had gone, and now, all that was left was waiting. The next morning, the sun had not yet risen properly when Alex's phone rang again. Private number. He knew who it was. He picked up the phone, but before he could say a word, a deep, trembling voice came from the other side. Alex, what did you do? Damien's voice sounded more tired and scary than before. What are you asking me, Damien? That's the question you should ask yourself. What did you do? Said Alex coldly. You know what I'm talking about, Damien whispered. My money, all my accounts, my location, everything is locked. No one is helping me. All my people are cut off from me. You did it, didn't you? Alex took a deep breath and looked out the window. I don't understand you, he said deliberately. But if such a thing has happened, your enemies may have framed you. How many did you betray you, Damien? Stop the... Damien almost screamed now. That's your son, isn't he? Is he doing all this? All emotion disappeared from Alex's face. If you think so, you'll have to give proof, he said in a low voice. Damien was silent for a moment, then laughed. But this laugh was full of madness. You think it's over? I know it's over, Alex said coldly. You think I'll just give up? You have no choice, Alex said. You can't run away. You can't hide. Damien laughed again, but this time there was anger in his voice. I will ruin you and your son, he said, gritting his teeth. Does your son think he is very clever? He's still a child, and when I find him, what are you going to do? There was a different kind of calm in Alex's tone now. Damien fell silent. I know where you are, Damien. Alex went on slowly. I know where you tried to hide, who you asked for help, and how many places you were driven away. I also know that you are now desperate. Damien's breathing had quickened. Now tell me, Alex whispered, what were you going to do with us? There was silence on the phone for a few moments. Then an eerie silence from the other side, and the phone got disconnected. Alex looked at the phone, then he glanced at Jason. Did you hear? Jason nodded. I think he won't survive much longer, she said. The more desperate he is, the bigger the mistake he'll make. And then what? Then the right time will come to drop him, Jason said, with the same calculating glint in his eyes. Are you sure he's not in a position to do anything? Yes, said Jason, smiling softly. Now he's just a wounded hunter. And the wounded hunter always makes the biggest mistake. Alex didn't know whether to be proud or afraid of his son's talent, but he knew it wasn't going to end. This was just the beginning. Alex found himself awake in the midst of the dark night. His watch struck 3 o'clock in the morning. He had a habit of losing sleep in anticipation of something untoward, but today his fear was real. He slowly got up and looked at every corner of the house. The door to Jason's room was slightly open. He began to peek inside, but Jason wasn't on his bed. Jason, he called out in a whisper. No answer. Alex's heartbeat quickened. He headed straight to the garage. As he opened the door, he saw the blue light of the computer screen. Jason was right there, completely engrossed, the same cold confidence on his face that had now become his identity. What are you doing here? Alex asked softly. Jason raised his head. There was no trace of sleep in his eyes. That's it. I'm getting over it, he replied. Alex walked slowly up to him and looked at the computer screen. Damien Cross, location tracing. A live tracking feed was playing on the screen. Jason, what is this? He's trying to move, Jason said flatly. But I already know his every move. Alex saw a red dot on the computer screen that was moving slowly. Where is he now? New Orleans. And what is he doing? He's trying to hide, Jason said, but he's gone to the wrong place. What do you mean? He went to ask an old contact for help, but... Jason typed in a few more codes and another feed opened up on the screen. CCTV footage showed Damien meeting a suspicious man. But suddenly the man stepped back and pushed Damien. A few seconds later, 2 more men arrived. They recognized him, Jason said. Instead of rescuing him, they would now settle their accounts with him. Alex didn't know how to react to it. Don't you think? She said. Should we do something? There is no need to do anything, Jason said directly. He had made his own enemies. I just made sure they found him. Alex's heart sank. You trapped him there? I just did a little. Showed me the way, Jason said coldly. Jason, this is getting too much. Jason looked straight into her eyes for the first time. Do you really think that, Dad? Alex was silent for a moment. If we let him go, he could attack again. But that's not the right way. What would be the right way? Jason asked. Shall we wait for the police? And what would we do until he attacked us? Alex didn't get an answer. Jason pointed to the screen. Now he won't survive much longer, and it won't be our fault. But you didn't do it like a 10-year-old, Jason. He did it like a mastermind. I did what was necessary, Jason said calmly. For the first time, Alex realized that Jason was no longer a normal child. He had taken the game a long way. Now all that remains to be seen, Jason said softly, how it all ends. The night passed, but there was no sleep in Alex's eyes. His mind was still engrossed in Jason's words. Was it all right? Had his 10-year-old son really gone so far that he was no longer an ordinary child? When the first light of the morning came in through the window, Alex realized that everything was not the same as before. It wasn't just a battle to defeat Damien. It had also become a battle to stop Jason. He went into the kitchen, where Jason was already sitting, doing something on his tablet. Did you get up so early? Alex asked. I've never slept, Jason replied without taking his eyes. Are you still tracking? I don't need it anymore. Alex took a deep breath as he sat down at the counter. Did you find out anything about Damien? Yes. What happened? Jason turned the screen. There was a police report from New Orleans. Damien has been arrested. Alex began to read the report quickly. Local police arrested a wanted man from a New Orleans hotel this morning, who was already under investigation in several economic crimes and fraud cases. Police say they had received anonymous information that led them to reach out to the accused and nab him. Alex took a deep breath as he read the report. So, it's over. Almost, Jason replied, but there's still one more link to come. What? Mother. Alex was shocked. Laura? Yes, he's still out. But he hasn't done anything. Really, Dad? Jason said with sharp eyes. He cheated on you, stole money, and tried to break up our family together with Damien. But she's broken now. Everything was gone. But she's still a threat, Jason said. What if she went to the police and tried to prove that I framed Damien? Alex realized for the first time how far Jason had thought. Do you really want to bring him down? I just want to make sure he doesn't harm us. But this time, we don't have to do anything. How? Because he has prepared a trap for himself. Alex looked at Jason in confusion. I didn't have to do anything, Jason explained. His bank accounts have already been frozen. He has no place to stay, and whoever she was asking for help, they are no longer even picking up her calls. How do you know that? I tracked down, Jason said unconcernedly, and also noticed that he had tried to call the police last night. Alex's eyes widened. What? But they didn't listen to him. Why? Because after Damien's arrest, the police got a list of many more big criminals. Laura's name is not at the top of them, so her complaint is not being taken seriously. So, now we just have to wait, Jason said. He has no choice left. She will either deal with the police to save herself or disappear altogether. In either case, it won't be a threat to us. Alex realized how perfect Jason's plan was. So, is it really over? I think yes, said Jason. It's just a matter of time to see which path Mom chooses. Alex was about to breathe a sigh of relief at first, but then a question came to his mind. Jason, now that it's all over, how do you feel? Jason replied with a smile, feeling at peace. Alex realized that his son was the same, but now he had changed completely. He was no longer just an innocent 10-year-old child. He had become something else, something that even Alex himself was afraid of. Alex felt a deep uneasiness within him. It was all over. Damien was behind bars. Laura's life was shattered, and no danger was coming knocking on their door. But still, there was something that wouldn't let him rest easy. He was looking up at Jason's face, that calm, calculating expression. It was unusual to see a 10-year-old child like this. It wasn't just confidence, it was something else. What now? Alex asked. Now, we can start our lives again, Jason said with a slight smile. Do you see it this way? Like a win? No. Jason nodded. It wasn't a game, Dad. It was necessary. Alex was silent for a moment, then put his hand on Jason's shoulder. I want you to leave everything for a while, she said. Focus on school. Make friends. Be like a normal child. I'm fine, Jason said spontaneously. I don't think I need to change anything. But, Dad, Jason interrupted, don't you think I did the right thing? Alex couldn't answer. If he was to be honest, yes. What happened was necessary. But the way it was done, it was uncomfortable. I'll have to think it over, she said softly. Jason smiled. All right, but I know you don't hate me. Why would I hate you? Because I've changed, Jason said simply. You think I did something I shouldn't have done. Jason, never mind, Jason tried to reassure her. I understand. But don't worry, Dad. Everything will be fine now. But Alex wasn't relieved to hear the words. Night fell, and Alex still couldn't sleep. He peered out of the window where a light breeze was blowing. Everything was quiet. But this peace was of a different kind. A strange, strange peace. Jason was in his room, but Alex noticed that his light was still on. He slowly opened the door and peered inside. Jason was sitting in front of his laptop. "Are you awake yet?" Alex asked. Jason looked at her in shock, then slowly closed the laptop. "Yes," she replied. "Was just setting things up." "What things?" "Nothing, that's all." "For safety." Alex felt that Jason was still doing something he shouldn't have done. "Do you really want to end everything?" he asked. "I don't know," Jason replied honestly. "Do things ever really end?" "It should," said Alex. "You have to get out of all this, son. These are not things of your age." "But I can't get out of it," Jason said, "because I've changed it. Now things will not be the same." Alex had no answer. He knew that his son was no longer innocent, and that's what scared him the most. Alex had sensed that something had changed, and the change wasn't just limited to his circumstances. Jason wasn't the same as before. The same cold confidence in his eyes, the same peace that had previously filled him with pride, was now beginning to frighten. The next morning, when Alex came down for breakfast, Jason was already sitting there. He had untouched toast on his plate, and he was meditating on the screen of his tablet. "Don't go to school today?" Alex asked. "No," Jason replied without glancing. "There's an online assignment. I can work from home." "Good," Alex nodded, but there was an uneasiness within. He sat down in front of Jason and said softly, "I thought that now that all is over, we can live normal lives for a while." "We're normal," Jason said, looking straight into her eyes. "No, son," Alex said with a sigh. "We're not." For the first time, Jason put down his tablet and looked intently at his father. "Do you think I did something wrong?" Alex heard no hesitation in his voice. It was not a voice of guilt. It was the voice of someone who knew what he had done and had no regrets. "I'm not saying you did it wrong," Alex said softly. "But you did it the way you did. He was dangerous, Jason." "Why?" "Because you did it all so easily," Alex said. "For you, it was just a calculation. A game of chess. But that was real life, son. Real people. Real results." "And the real danger," said Jason. "If I hadn't done anything, would Damien have left us alone?" "Probably not," Alex admitted. "What then?" "But it wasn't your responsibility," Alex said seriously. "You're just 10 years old, son. You shouldn't think that way." Jason bowed his head with a slight smile. "You said I should use my talents properly," she said. "That's what I did." Alex had no answer. Maybe Jason was right. Maybe that was what was needed. But still, there was something that didn't seem right. By evening, Alex tried to suppress the fear inside him. He wanted everything to be the same as before. But then the incident happened that changed everything. The phone rang around 10 p.m. Laura. Alex reluctantly picked up the call. "What now?" he asked coldly. There was no sound from the other side, just the sound of heavy breathing. "Laura?" Alex ... His voice was trembling. Something is wrong." "What happened?" "I don't know." She was nervous. "I felt something. It felt like someone was watching me." "Where are you?" "In a hotel. The police are still questioning me, but..." "Alex, something doesn't feel right. Why do you think someone is watching you?" "Because..." His voice slowed down even more. "I looked out the window, and there was a drone." Alex's heart began to beat loudly. "Drones?" "Yes, a little bit. But as soon as I saw it, it disappeared." Alex slowly hung up the phone and turned to the kitchen. where Jason was sitting in front of his laptop. He took a deep breath, then asked softly, "Jason, what did you do today?" Jason slowly raised his head and smiled. "I was just watching, Dad." The ground slipped under Alex's feet. "What? Did you keep an eye on Mom?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I had to know what she was doing," Jason said simply. "I didn't harm her, if that's what you're thinking. But I had to make sure he wasn't playing tricks." "Jason, it wasn't necessary," Alex said. "We're not worrying about him anymore." "You're not," Jason said, "but I am." The fear within Alex deepened its roots. "Now just do it, Jason," she said softly. "It's over." Jason looked at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, Dad." But Alex knew it was just words. It wasn't over. And probably, it will never end. Alex was now convinced that all was not lost. It was true that Damien was in prison, Laura was shattered, and his life should now be free from external threats. But now he could see that the real danger was elsewhere. It was inside their own home. Jason, his son. She's innocent, smart, and now something else had been created. Alex rubbed his hands together, his palms drenched with sweat. He was sitting alone in his office in the dark of night, his mind racing. Could it really have ended? Could Jason ever have become normal? Somewhere in his heart was the fear that perhaps the answer was no. The next morning, when Alex arrived in the kitchen, Jason was already there, with the same calm expression on his face, as if nothing had happened. "Good morning, Dad." Alex took a deep breath. "Good morning, son." "What's the plan for today?" "I want us to talk, Jason." "We always talk," Jason said with the same quiet confidence in his voice. "What do you want to know?" "Do you really think it's over?" Jason was silent for a while. Then he picked up a piece of toast, chewed on it, saying, "Dad, things in the world are never completely finished." "Matlab? I mean, the dangers never completely disappear." Alex felt that his son was pointing to something that he had not yet understood. "Are you hiding something, Jason?" Jason smiled. "You trust me, don't you?" Alex couldn't answer, and that's what scared him the most. Night fell, and Alex still couldn't sleep. His restlessness was increasing. He slowly stepped towards Jason's room. There was a faint light coming from under the door. He opened the door lightly. Jason was sitting in front of his laptop. But this time, there was something different on screen. Not a screen of coding, not a bank statement. It was a live feed from a security camera, and it wasn't from his house. "Jason," Alex's voice trembled. "What is it?" Jason raised his head, no trepidation in his eyes, no remorse. "That's it. Precaution." "What precaution, Jason?" "Dad, you always told me to use my talents properly," Jason said, "so that's what I'm doing." "But whose feed is this?" "Some of Damien's old contacts," Jason said spontaneously. "Who didn't go to jail?" Alex's head was dizzy. Are you still keeping an eye on them?" "Yes," said Jason, "because if I didn't keep up, they could attack again." "But you're only 10 years old, Jason." "So what? So what?" Alex almost yelled. "You don't have to do this, son. It shouldn't be our life." "But this is our life," Jason said coldly, "and it always will be." Alex's eyes widened with fear. "You don't understand, Dad," said Jason with a smile. "It wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't a game. This was just the beginning." "What do you mean?" "Damien was just a problem." "And?" "There are many more Damiens in the world," Jason said lightly. "And now I know how to deal with them." "No," Alex said softly. "No, Jason, that's wrong." "Wrong?" "Yes, son," said Alex in a trembling voice. "You can't go this way." Jason bowed his head. Then he said, You think I can stop? Yes, Alex said, and you have to stop. No, Dad, Jason nodded. It's too late. Alex felt as if the world around him had come to a standstill. You don't have to be afraid, Dad, Jason said with a smile. I'll get everything under control now. And for the first time, Alex realized this. He had already lost his son, and perhaps nothing could be fixed now.